Hello friends, and welcome to the Mind and Muse Crochet and Fiber podcast. For those of you that are joining me for the first time, I am Caroline, your host, and I come to you from the island of Puerto Rico in the Caribbean, where I live with my husband. And you have just tuned into a podcast about the crafty side of my life, which means that every few weeks I come by this channel and I share with you my experiences at crocheting, needle felting, or every once in a while some knitting project that I have picked up, or even something I have sewn. So thank you for stopping by, and I hope you enjoy the time we're going to spend together as much as I enjoy chatting and catching up with what you have been up to. So, how have you been? How are you for me, it's a Sunday morning. So how are you on this fine Sunday morning, 26th of June? And probably somewhere around 10 o'clock in the morning. How have you been over the past couple of weeks? Well, on my part, I have spent most of my time over the last couple of weeks preparing for the upcoming semester at the university where I work. I am under contract as a part-time professor, which currently means spending a lot of time on things that I am not being paid for. So yes, basically that takes up 6 to 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday. And after that, well then, I craft. As you can probably guess from the title of this episode, over the past couple of weeks I have spent a lot of time, or maybe as much time, frogging as I have spent crafting. So, although I have a lot to talk about, I really don't have a lot to show. But anyway, let's crack on with it. As usual, the first segment of this podcast is about walking the talk. How I use things that I have made in the past. And today I have for you the necklace that I am wearing, right? As straight in your face, the elephant in the room, the necklace. So this necklace was strung a way time back. Let me see. I'll tell you. I was going to tell you November 2009 is the issue of the Bead Style magazine in which this necklace was featured. Because, as I have mentioned before it became, let's say, I won't say full-time, but before I occupied a lot of my time crocheting and working with yarn, I made jewelry. And I also received magazines to help inspire, to see what was in and what new materials were coming out, and to basically try and copy designs that other people make, just like I do in crochet. So this one I made with stash, because the actual materials that are used in the necklace, the original necklace, were not in my stash and were out of my budget, because most of this is done with Swarovski crystals, bicons, trapezoids, pearls. And if you know anything about beading, well, even if you don't, I'll tell you that those materials are not cheap, they're especially hard to find in small quantities. And usually for a necklace like this, let me see, they would tell you to have 6 keystone crystals in one color, 6 13-millimeter keystone crystals in another color, 14 10-millimeter round pearls, 10 8-millimeter round pearls, etc. So you need only a couple of beads. And usually when you go to a craft store to buy beads, or online, I usually, as I do with my crochet, my yarny addictions, I would do with my beading addictions where I usually bought things online. My favorite store was called Fire Mountain. And I also purchased from Art Beads, which were the two major stores that I purchased from online. And they seldomly sold what would you say, items separately. Like you had to buy them in groups, like a package of 10 or a package of 100 or something like that. So I just made it with whatever I had. So instead of, let's say, the keystones here, I used these these diamond shaped double holed. These are just agate that I picked up on a trip to, I believe, Costa Rica. I know we were in South America. And then instead of the, what was it, the 10 millimeter pearls, I used 10 millimeter glass. And instead of the 8 millimeter pearls, I went down to 8 millimeter glass, which is what I had. I probably did use some bicons here. I did have some of these top drilled bicons. They were here and etc. So basically I just made it up with whatever I had. Probably if instead of using these like bronze colored, brown colored seed beads that they use here, I would have used them in a lighter color, maybe a color closer to this one here. What I made essentially would have looked more like their second version of the necklace, which was here. Okay? So I was going more for that one because I knew that I didn't have all the materials. And so, yeah, maybe in the future, I have seldomly, I'll have to say, worn this because I don't have a lot of blouses with this, or garments at all, with this type of neckline that actually will show off the necklace. And so, yes, it really got used. And we don't go out to a lot of formal events, and so, yeah, I just couldn't find something to use with it. But I really loved the construction. I thought it was a very nice make. So I always liked this make. I was always very proud of it, but I could never actually really use it as much. And now that I'm seeing it, I think that if I replace these brown bicons, it's just a matter of restringing it. If I replace these, then, because all the pieces are intact, they're still all very good. So if I just replace the brown for maybe a more transparent color, maybe I will be more motivated, or maybe I'll just make a point of wearing it more often. I don't know. But I've always liked it. I've always liked the design. Or maybe what I'll do, now that I've seen it again, is maybe I'll purchase these items and make it in a different color. I've always liked that. The difficulty was always wearing it, finding a garment to wear with it. Because one of the things that I believe these magazines were lacking were models. Were showcasing their pieces on a model so that you could actually see what it was going to look like in the end and how they wore it. But anyway, I am a fan. And so these are 3, are they? No, this is the same version on the front cover. And so that's my walking the talk. It's a confession about, well, this one I actually have not used it as much as I would like to, but I'm thinking about giving it new life. Maybe a makeover, and maybe that way I'll use it a little more. Although, I don't know you guys, but we're still under, or not still, I think we have gone back to a curfew here that had been lifted. We can go out. I mean, supermarkets, masks are required if you go out anywhere. And things like beaches and public places, parks, the visits are limited to, first of all, masks, and second of all, no stay visits where you can walk around and do exercise, or just take in the fresh air and the sound of the waves, but you cannot sit, stay, eat, and make a picnic of it. Like stores are open, you must go with masks, and we are under curfew from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning, which is basically banning the selling of alcohol in bars and pubs and places like that. So this continues to be a hard time for all of us, but it's okay. Every once in a while I get dressed up. Every once in a while I'll put on a face. Every once in a while I'll put on some clothes and some jewelry, and I'll just walk around my house because we have to have some type of normal, right? And so cracking on with the rest of this, continuing to my next section, although in the same line, something that I have giving a new life to, although its first life was rather short, would be this garment that I am showing you here, which is, if you remember, my practical magic garment that I shared with you the last episode. Because if you remember from that episode, I was telling you that I believe that when I added this edging here, which, if you remember, the first part of this was from a garment called the Summer Lace Top by, let me check. The Summer Lace Top was, okay, the Lazy Hobby Hopper. The Lazy Hobby Hopper blogspot.com. She had a pattern, a free pattern for a summer top, which I copied. To that pattern I added the scallop edging here and on the sleeves, and then I copied the whole pattern in a size medium, and then from there down I used the bottom part of Las Nubes, a pattern from Clarissa Beth of Crochet Cakes. And the problem that I had the last time I showed it to you, I was even wearing it, was that it was kind of like folding in down here because of the fact that it appeared that my pineapple edging, I had more stitches on my pineapple edging than I had on my top. So that stitch difference was causing it to kind of like cave in on the sides. Well, yes, I fixed it. I ripped it all the way back to up to here. I made sure that on that last row of my body I had the amount of stitches mentioned in Las Nubes pattern. So if you were following a small, this was so many, a medium, this so many. So I checked to see which size was closest to the amount of stitches that I had here. I believe it might have been the 174. And so I made sure that when I went around I had that many stitches. And so that might have meant crochet, doing some increases around, equally distributed my increases around until I had the amount of stitches that I needed to start the pineapple border. Then I completed my border and I re-added on the, well, remember that at the bottom here I have these that picot edging on each of my pineapples. So that is redone, and you'll notice that it no longer caves in here on the sides. I will say, however, that it is big on me. If I were to make it again, I don't know, I have this urge to try and make it again. But this is DK weight, and so I don't have a lot of that in my stash. And it's really hard to get any yarn here from anywhere outside of the island. Takes a long time to get here is what I mean. So I haven't purchased any, and I remember that I am always just trying to use my stash as much as I can. And so yeah, I haven't purchased any, but I do want to make it again. Or I might be thinking about, I did at the end when I wove in the edges, I didn't really weave them in the way we should. I just followed a vertical trajectory so that I could pull that out if I ever decided to remake it. And so if I decide to remake this, it's a matter of just pulling out one string at the bottom, and the other ones in the middle here I crocheted over them. So they're easy to get out also. And I really like this yarn. I don't want it to go to waste, so I might rip this all back. Didn't really take that long to make, and make it in small. I think I would like it. It is big enough, or I might just leave it like that, use it like that, and use it like that, and make another one. I don't know, but I have no. There's not a pattern that I've written for it because I really didn't do anything on my own. Although I was thinking about contacting the two designers and see if I could publish on my blog how I used those two together, what I did to make it, and put it like in words. It would probably just be refer to this garment on this blog and follow the size, your size. I would recommend making this part here bigger. This is where the body ends in the yoke ends in the pattern and the body begins, but I found that too short, so I made it a bit longer. And so to do so, since this part, the yoke is made from the bottom up, so when you reattach to make this part here, so I reattached and I continued the first pattern before I went on to the new stitches. Okay, so I talked a lot about on the previous podcast, but I wanted to bring it back because of the fact that it was noticeable what was going on here with the stitches, and I wanted to show you that it would work, that it actually would work if it was done correctly. So I just wasn't careful enough the first time around to not force the bottom pineapple edging into the number of stitches that I had, but make my increases equally distributed around the bottom border, the bottom edge before I started my border, and that was not difficult to do, and it actually did work a lot better. So that is an update on the Practical Magic top and how I have modified it to take away those mistakes that we were seeing and the little defects that we were seeing on the last podcast. So moving on to other projects that I have finished and have reached the end of the line for me. I have here the Taino wall hanging that I had been sharing with you for the previous podcasts. It is now complete, I am happy to say, and I really like the way it turned out. You're not seeing it right now because the camera can't take, but the top part of this wall art, I made it a band, like small bands, about 8 bands separated, so I could put it on a curtain hanger. And then I added the tassels to the bottom because I like the way the tassels were. Tassels out of the same yarn. I did try tassels in other colors and I didn't like them much. I just decided to go with this one because I had a lot of that yarn. And so yeah, that's it. This pattern will be available for you, if you'll remember, during beginning August 15th to August 15th to October 15th, when Clarissa of the Crochet Cakes podcast will be hosting her version of a celebration of National Hispanic Heritage Month. And so, as I have said in the past, I mean, it's not something that says anything to you. It only means something if you know what this is, right? If you know that this is an indigenous drawing of a small frog that lives on the island called the Coqui, and it was their way of recreating the animal. It appears on inside caves and caverns on the island, and it is representative of our Puerto Rican heritage. So it's not an ant or anything like that, if you don't know. But so yeah, I'll be publishing this pattern with a little bit of its history and all that in case you want to check it out. And it will be available for you. I'm very happy with it. I think the colors go very well with my crafting room. That's where it is at the moment. I'm hoping to move this forward and to pass it on to somebody who will enjoy it as much as I will. We'll see how it goes. So that's number 2 of the items that I have completed, things that you have seen in the past. Number 3 is something that you haven't seen, but that I had a dire necessity for, which was a patch, because I had these jean shorts that I wear a lot. And they already came when I bought them with these holes in them, as do modern day jeans for the younger people. But I was in a spot. We were at the airport in Argentina, and we were going to visit a tropical forest that they have in Argentina. And my husband had not told me that we would be doing that visit, and that obviously I should take clothes for hot weather, because Argentina is a fabulous place to visit on like a one-time shot, because it's got so many different climates, and the geography is so distinctive from one part to the other. You can have mountains and glaciers that we went to see, or you can have the forests, or you can have the rivers, or you can have the grazing land for the animals like the sheep and the cows, or you can have tropical rainforests. So I was in this rut because I had not taken. It wasn't only the fact that we needed clothes for warmer weather, because that's okay. I come from Puerto Rico. I've got lots of that. It was the fact that we were going to take a tour to a fall where they were going to take us on a boat very close to it, and we would actually get wet. So you didn't want to have heavy clothes on, because you wanted something that would dry up very quickly while you walked back from the ride to where the bus was going to pick you up. So I didn't have that, but we stopped. Argentina is so big, that it's so vast, that in order to see enough of it, we needed to take airplanes. You couldn't go by land because it would take too long, and our tour was only like 6 or 7 days. So the company, the tourism company that we purchased our tour from, they arranged it so that we could get to places as fast as possible and see as much as possible of the country while in our stay. They worked fabulously with us. And so this stop at an airport early in the morning, but they had some shops already open, and I was able to purchase this pair of shorts that I use very frequently in my home. And as a matter of fact, I didn't use them there, but anyway. And so I was able to purchase them, but they already came with holes. Those are not holes from usage, but those are holes from, modern day clothes where when I was a kid, you would be so ashamed of wearing clothes with holes in it, because it meant that you were poor, and you didn't want to go around showing that to people. But nowadays, it's a thing to walk around with holes in your jeans. Sure, and in your shoes or whatever. So anyway, it had this one big hole that kept getting bigger. There's one that's still there. And then it had this other hole that kept getting bigger. It's even extended to up here. So I, for a long time, had been thinking about adding patches. Patches to the clothes. And issue 99 of Simply Crochet published this pattern. And so this was a slothy pattern. I probably showed this to you on the last one. But that was her sloth, and it was published in the issue. And so I recreated the sloth for my jeans. Now, if you notice, the hole was about this big, and here I am with this big old sloth. Well, it wasn't the intention. I did not have the intention of making it that big. What happened was that, what is their suggestion here is they use 4-ply, 100% cotton, and because of the colors, because I needed this like creamy color for light brown color and the darker brown color around the edges and some of the white, and I didn't have that in 4-ply cotton. I used this cotton, Karen Cotton Cakes, that I have. If you've been here for a while, you will have remembered a cardigan that I made up in this yarn. This was left over, and I didn't use this ball, but I had little balls of it left over in my stash, And so this was the cream that I used. This here was the white that I used. And that brown that I used was a brown, it's actually linen and cotton that Clarissa left behind from a popcorn, what was it? It was that she used it for a popcorn pullover that she made a while back. Anyway, so I was just using stuff from Stash. However, this is not fingering weight. I'm looking to see if it says it's worsted, size 4. And so you should be using a 5mm crochet hook. But I didn't. I knew I was using a worsted yarn, so I made it up with whatever they asked for here. A 3mm hook I used to make this up. And even so, look how big it is. But it did the job. It covered up the hole. And I glued it down completely and then just sewed it on the inside. So, because the glue might come out at some point, right? If I wash this a lot. So there, I need to probably cover up this one, although you can't really see it that much because it's in front of the pocket. And maybe cover up this one over here, which are the ones that you see the most because when you sit down and all that. I just don't want the jeans to break because I like them. So yes, there's a slothy pattern if you are interested in it. Works up very quickly, nothing difficult about it. I had these little buttons. These are 2 buttons that I had in my stash. And this was a nose that I had in my stash. What this one doesn't have is the mouth, because I tried to add the smiley mouth to this. But all her face is done, if you can tell, in embroidery. And I really don't have good embroidery skills, so my nose was pretty big, and I just couldn't get a mouth that looked right, so I just decided to leave it without it. So there's my slothy jean patch, which was just a quick make that I just made one afternoon when I saw the pattern, and I realized that I really liked it and I thought it would work. And I wanted to make something quick because the projects that I had been working on had been taking me so long. And they had been taking me very long, not so much because they were difficult or they were long-term projects, but because I kept on frogging back and repeating, frogging back and repeating. One of those that you cannot see today because it was frogged was my version of the Shield Maiden. Shield Maiden is a pattern by Elizabeth of the Crochet Cakes. You can find it free on crochetcakes.com. And it has always been one of her patterns that I liked the most. I loved the V-neck that it had, and then it has, at the bottom, it has a, let's see if I can get it up for you real quick here. So this is her Shield Maiden, and I have always loved that V-neck, and although I probably would wear it with a t-shirt underneath, or I would probably try and line the bottom part of it because I'm not so daring at my age to wear the holes that show through and all that. I thought it was a lovely blouse. And I really had wanted to make that for so long, but the yarn that she used to make this was not available to me. And I also thought that it might be a little bit too heavy because she makes this in, it's Bernat Maker Home Deck. Bernat Maker Home Deck. I thought it was called Home Decor, but it's just Home Deck. And that is a very thick, it's not plied, it's a 1-ply, but it's got like a poly filling in it, and so it's a very nice yarn to work with. The crochet stitch definition is beautiful, but I didn't know if it would be too heavy for me to wear here on the island, and I want to make things that I can wear. So I tried, she had for some time been interested in trying to make a DK weight version of the pattern and just test to see if the actual measures that she has there would still work. So I took it under my care to recreate this with a yarn that I had in my stash. It was I believe 100% cotton, maybe. And it was a Aran weight. And so I thought that was pretty thick, that I would make this following the larger size, because she's got a small, medium, and then a large, extra large, two sizes. So I was going to make the larger size and to see what happened. And, excuse me, Cora, I'll show you several things I tried with this yarn. I didn't rip it back because I wanted to show you. Well, I ripped back one of the sides, but not both of the sides. So this was the yarn that I chose. I had purchased this yarn on some trip in Spain, while I was in Spain. It's called Opalo. And no, it is 60% cotton and 40% acrylic. But it is Aran weight. It's very thick. And so Clarissa asked me that what got into me to make me buy this yarn. Nothing like anything that it was probably just cheap, and I probably wanted some memory from Spain, so I did purchase it. And so this is what came out. Notice it pulls terribly. But I didn't think that was going to look so bad. I mean, I really didn't think it was going to look so bad once I got it all together. Look at that. What do you think? You think that would have looked bad? I mean, a summery blouse. I don't know. But I didn't finish it because I didn't have enough yarn. I was able to do the other side, and I don't even think I was able to finish the body of it. Or is this worked bottom up? This is worked bottom up, I think. Yeah. So I was able to complete this part here, which I love that pattern. And if you don't follow Clarissa Beth, you should. She's got a podcast also, Crochet Cakes. And she has just recently made a cardigan in this pattern here. And it is precious. It is beautiful. So I'm not giving up on this. I want to make it again. And I know now that it can be it works in an Aran weight cotton, or cotton blend. And we were also able together to correct some wordings and things like that. And so, my little adventure here was not able to be completed, but it did result in her pattern improving itself, because we did catch a couple of things, or learn to say things a little bit better. So this is my favorite part right here. I love the V-neck. I just didn't, I don't know, something told me that it might not come out too bad. But anyway, I couldn't finish it because the yarn wasn't enough. And I also tried at one point, because of the colors that it had in it, I also tried to make these comb. That was after I finished, that I realized it wasn't going to work. I said, well, I wonder if this would work as a dangle here, as a tassel dangle for this. And I actually did attach it, but then I figured, well, maybe for me it was work, but if I'm going to give it away, somebody might not find the change in color very attractive, and so I decided to save this for another project. So I've got 6 of these tassels around here. So there, things that we work on that don't always come out have to be shared also, because I don't want you to think it's a perfect world. I mean, we do make mistakes and things do happen, like we run out of yarn. So I hope to have one of those in my future, because I really do like the pattern. Now, what things am I progressing with at the moment? So you'll see a couple of patterns or projects that I began in the past that I have frogged, and I have repurposed the yarn because I realized they weren't going to work out today. One of them is my salt and pepper top, which is here. Well, it's no longer here because I have been frogging it to make a new project. This was my salt and pepper top if you're here for the first time. it was much, it had more progress to it. It was basically at the bottom here, ready to split, when I also realized I wasn't going to have enough yarn to complete it, and that it was coming out way too thick. That the fabric, though beautiful, well, that's not so beautiful because that's the seam. But the other fabric was, though beautiful, was way too thick, and I would never use it on the island. And at the current moment, I don't even know when we'll be traveling again. So it has been frogged and repurposed. And I am repurposing it into this pattern. And it is so much nicer. It's so thin and light and drapey and not thick and heavy like the other one. This is not my pattern by any means. This is a pattern by Nomad Stitches. It's called the Maya Cover Up. I believe I have her pattern. It's a paid for pattern, but she had a sale recently on her patterns where she put her pattern, some of her patterns up for $1 on her site, and she also, for her birthday, had a 30% or 33% off her patterns because she was 33 or 34 years old. I don't know. But she had a percentage off. And so it was a good time to stock up on her patterns. So this is the Maya top. M-A-I-A. I'll see if I can get a front picture so you can see the whole thing. Here. The Maya top. And so I have just completed the top part, front top right now. And so the middle part has a stitch pattern and the bottom part has a third stitch pattern. There are 3 stitch patterns together here. And it is basically just a square top, boxy top, that you could use to, like it says, to, or like I say, to cover up for a trip to the beach or to wear over a jumpsuit, or trousers, well, whatever. To each his own, right? And so I wanted to make it as a cover up. The picture doesn't really grow very big. So anyway, I wanted to, doesn't grow nicely. Gets pixelated. So I'll just leave it at that. You've seen enough of it. Buy the pattern if you want to see more. This is the top part. I am making it in a, well, I began making this in an extra large because it's a cover up for my daughter. It's a gift from my oldest daughter. And even though nobody's going to the beach right now, someday it will happen. And so this is the top part. I had made it first in extra large. And then I blocked it and found that it was going to be what I thought was going to be way too large. Even though it is supposed to have 8 inches, I think, maybe something like that, of positive ease. It's supposed to have a lot of positive ease. I still thought it was going to be way too big. I mean, this is the extra large piece. And I'll compare it. This has been blocked. The extra large has been blocked. So obviously it's going to be a lot bigger than my large. But there you go. Okay, so maybe about half of that is would be realistic if it had been unblocked. But it was still a lot bigger. So even though I had made the back, I am going to redo it in a large. So I made the front, I made the back, I blocked them, I frogged them, and now I have made the front, and I am going to frog the back and remake it. Because I love the pattern so much that I think it's beautiful. And it's just interesting and curious how one stitch pattern creates something and another stitch pattern with the same yarn creates something totally different. So yes, I think this is a better pattern for this yarn for me because of the fact that of where I live. It's also funny how the difference, I mean, I took the old top part and I just made the new top part in large, frogging from the crocheted garment. I didn't frog it and wind it up into a ball and crochet the other one. And this was all that was left from the original. So, you know, I thought I am doing it in a 5.5 instead of a 6 that she recommends because I did a gauge swatch and I got gauge with the 5.5. But it's interesting to see that all my worry, and there's really not, I even thought, well, okay, I'll make it in a large and I'll have more yarn to work with and maybe make sure that I will actually have enough yarn. But this really, I don't think is going to make that much of a difference, although I should have more or less the same amount left over from the back, so maybe it actually will make a difference in that fact that I should have enough yarn. I don't know. I did find a place where they would sell me a couple of those skeins, so maybe if I need them I can go there. So that is one project that has been frogged and remade. And this was an adventure because I had actually started out, I wanted to make it in a white. I didn't have enough white. And then I decided to make it in cream colored using this Knit Picks. This is Knit Picks Fingering Weight Comfy. And it also is a 75 Pima cotton and 25% acrylic. It's very soft. But then I said the fingering weight uses DK, let me use it double, but I did not like the fabric that I was going to get. I still found that this was really, really heavy. I mean, if you want to go to the beach, you're really not going to want to throw something heavy on yourself. So, no. I could try making it in the largest size possible and using just a smaller hook and see if I have enough yarn to make it, because I love the pattern and I think the color is good for a cover-up, but it wasn't the texture at all, the type of fabric that I wanted. So that was my first intent. The second one was the extra large, and the third one was the large, and that's the one I'm staying with. So another thing that I recreated, let's see, not that, over here. You remember this yarn? That I was also using it for a garment design, very similar to the one that I was making with the salt and pepper, in the sense that it was going to have a border at the bottom, and I was using the same central single crochet to build up the body. And this yarn is a bit thicker than that other yarn. This is Bernat Softy Baby Cotton, and it was still thicker than the other yarn, so the garment was coming out a lot more thicker than I wanted. So I decided to repurpose the yarn for this one, this garment that I am making now. And this one is hot off the press because I was on Instagram and I saw that, this is Pocket Magazines, and I saw that Crochet Now, their latest magazine version, had a very pretty garment. This was issue 58 of Crochet Now. Had a very pretty garment on their cover. And I thought that, yeah, I found it very pretty. There it is. If you've been here for a while, you know that I like peplums. It's just my thing. The white is making the screen blow out, but there it is. It's got those like I guess, what would you call it? What does that look like? That, I mean, it is lace, but it kind of looks like a fisherman's net on the sleeves, and then the garment, and at the bottom it's got peplum. I don't know how well you can see it there, and then it's also got sections with that same lacy bit. I don't know if I'm going to add those sections. I'll see when I get there, because the garment is working up pretty quickly. But I will do the peplum. I might make it a bit longer if I have enough yarn, so that the peplum is a little bit lower. Yes. And this is what I have up to now. Okay, it's worked from top down, raglan style. And then, well, I can get it on. over my glasses. There you go. And so that's what I have up to now. How pretty. I think it's very pretty. I like it a lot. And I'm learning a lot from it because these sleeves here are made with what's called Solomon's knot, which is a lacy, as you can see, crochet. I've never made it before. I do have a pattern in another magazine made up with this stitch, but I am liking it a lot. And so I am making up the small because they were kind enough to say, which is one thing that I wish that a lot of people, that when they include their pictures and their patterns in the magazines, they would state what size the model is using so you can kind of like compare to your own body. And so they said she was using a small, and I thought that that would fit me also. And apparently it might fit. This is probably a bit, we're not there yet. We're about 4 rows away from breaking up for the sleeves, and since it's all done in double crochets, this is going to work quickly. So that's what I have to share with you today. Those are my new makes, and those are my constant frogging and my constant remaking. But it has been quite productive, even though I've learned a lot, and I am making things that make me happy. So that's important. That's important to keep in mind. Well, until we meet again, please keep yourself safe, keep yourself happy, and keep crafting. Bye for now.